So it's a good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Felista Moni. I work for UNESCO-UNEVOC, and I take this opportunity to welcome you to today's learning lab. And before we proceed, we shall do some housekeeping just to know what is expected of us today. Aldrich, please, if you could give me the housekeeping slide. So kindly note that this webinar will be recorded. We shall record it for those who will not be able to join, and also for your future reference. And we encourage you to use the question and answer feature to ask questions to our speakers today. You can find it on the icons in the Zoom webinar. And also there is an icon there, C, which you can use, which can be used for closed captioning. So feel free to ask questions and also caption the webinar for yourself. So before we begin, next slide, Aldrich. I would like to know how everybody is feeling today. And so again, just type something and tell us, what are you feeling today? How do you feel? I know it's morning, it's afternoon, it's evening. For some people, it's too early in the morning. So how are you feeling? Others are feeling great. Very good. Expectant, very curious, fresh, very happy. And we want to assure you that no matter how you're feeling, we really appreciate your presence today. And we are here to grow and learn together. Thank you so much for being happy. You can see so many people are happy and curious about this webinar. So I want to start by saying that in today's evolving world, where technology is changing every day, and industries are being shaped at an alarming rate, the skills we rely on may become outdated tomorrow, and that is obvious. So that is why flexibility in TVET is not just important, but very essential. So we need a dynamic TVET system that must empower individuals to continuously reskill and adapt to ever-changing industry demands. And this is how we shall ensure long-term employability and economic resilience. And to achieve this, we need to embrace a variety of flexible learning approaches, recognizing that there is no one-size-fits-all solution. The way we implement these approaches as TVET implementers will vary depending on the unique needs of each region and industry. So what matters most is that we remain committed to keeping learning pathways open, accessible, and responsive to change. So for this learning lab, we are focusing on flexible and accessible learning pathways in the construction sector, spanning from recognition of informal sector skills, integration of sustainability in vocational training, and creating pathways between TVET and higher education. And we are very proud and very grateful to have on board a team of experts from Brazil, Europe, Kenya, and New Zealand. And as you can see, we have industry, we have TVET institutions, and also we have policy in this learning lab. So we will be hearing from these speakers, and I will request Aldrich to show the slide that has the speakers so that I can introduce them. We will be hearing from Aidan Kenny, who is the head of apprenticeships technology from University of Dublin, Ireland. Then we have Eve Price, who is a portfolio manager, ConCOVE Tūhura from New Zealand, and Eve is also the BILT expert group lead for 2025. Then we have Klaas Talvid, who is a coordinator from Center for Flexible Learning Education Association from Sweden. Then we have Matthias Simos de Freitas from Higher End Education Manager, SENAI. That body is the National Industrial Learning Service from Brazil. Then we have Nyamai Wambua, who is the Chief Executive Officer, Kenya National Federation of Juakali Associations. Kenya, you will be telling us what Juakali means. And finally, we have Vanessa Canhete, who is the Industrial Development Specialist, again from SENAI. You already said this is the National Industrial Learning Service from Brazil. So we will be moving to speeches. We will give speakers each a couple of minutes to tell us about their innovative practice. And our first speaker will be Eve Price. And Eve will be sharing insights on how degree-level apprenticeships can create a seamless transition between TVET and higher education. So over to you, Eve, once you're ready.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Philista. Thank you to UNESCO-UNEVOC and to the IBB for making this happen. These are fantastic opportunities for us to hear what's happening around the world. So my name is Eve, I'm a portfolio manager at ConCOVE, which is the New Zealand Construction and Infrastructure Centre of Vocational Excellence. So kia ora from New Zealand. Today I'll be sharing our initiative on degree level apprenticeships in construction and infrastructure. This model aims to transform how we deliver higher education while also helping to address critical industry needs. With only 5 minutes, I'll focus on the challenges that we are hoping to address, the solution that we've put forward, and the anticipated impacts. Degree apprenticeships represent an innovation in vocational education. They're a bridge over the traditional gap between academic learning and workplace experience by fully integrating both elements into a single cohesive qualification pathway. This model directly addresses critical skills gaps in our construction and infrastructure sectors, excuse me, while creating more equitable pathways to higher qualifications for traditionally underrepresented groups. Importantly, implementing this approach requires a system-level change across both education and industry, which is why a coordinated national approach is essential in achieving this. Let me outline first the key challenges that we're addressing with this solution. Firstly, the financial barriers are significant. The average student loan debt is over $24,000 in New Zealand, which many potential learners simply can't afford, meaning that they're excluded from certain career pathways already. This particularly impacts career changers and mature learners who also have other existing financial commitments. Secondly, there's a serious skills gap. Industry surveys show that 83% of employers report poor communication skills in graduates, and 73% note that there's insufficient initiative demonstrated in new graduates. Perhaps most telling, only 12% of New Zealand construction workers hold a level 5 or above qualification, meaning that we have a significant opportunity to upskill the existing workforce as well as training the next one. We also continue to see significant underrepresentation of Maori, Pacific peoples and women in professional construction roles. Traditional pathways have created barriers for entry for these groups, and there are limited options for upskilling while working. Finally, and most importantly, industry. Industry needs are evolving rapidly, as Philista outlined in her introduction, with increasing demand for professional roles, changing technology, and of course, growing climate resilience considerations. Our solution to address these challenges is through these interconnected elements. Firstly, industry leadership, which is central to our approach. Employers are directly involved in a delivery, co-defining the standards that will be met, and integrating workplace learning with academic theory. Strong partnerships with professional bodies ensure that graduates meet the registration requirements for those professions. Secondly, flexible delivery removes the traditional barriers. The earn while you learn model makes education financially accessible. We use blended delivery, combining workplace, online, face-to-face components, supported by structured mentoring systems within the workplace. This makes higher education accessible to career changers and those in regional areas who simply can't relocate for study. Lastly, we ensure these qualifications are robust and credible. They are fully higher level qualifications with industry recognition and appear on our national framework, but they're underpinned by a quality assurance that spans both the workplace and the academic settings, ensuring that the two are communicating and count towards each other. Capstone assessments with industry input validate the competency, and clear pathways to professional registration ensure graduates can progress their careers. These are the pilots that are underway. These are our guinea pigs, as we call them. We've established 4 pilot programs in collaboration with industry partners and education providers. So you'll note the sectors that were selected. Traditionally, if you want to become a tiler or a roofer or a plumber, you do an apprenticeship. If you want to become an architect, you go to university. We're arguing that you can become an architect while learning on job as well. These disciplines were selected based on quantitative analysis of workforce needs and industry consultation. Each represents a professional pathway with significant skills shortages and strong potential for improved diversity. Our first pilot launched in July 2024, with others following in stage implementations. These pilots build on the success of the BEng Tech model, which has been going since about 2018 in New Zealand, which demonstrates the effectiveness of this approach within a New Zealand context. Looking forward, we anticipate several significant impacts from this initiative. First of all, a changing of perceptions, both of construction careers and vocational education more broadly, we hope. We're creating clear progression opportunities and professional pathways without those traditional barriers, positioning construction as a career of choice rather than a fallback option. Secondly, we're strengthening market alignment through regular industry involvement, responsive curriculum development, and integration of emerging technologies and green building practices. These ensure graduates are truly work ready and future focused. We've already seen very strong employer interest across the sector, indicating the model is addressing a genuine need. As we scale, we expect to see an increased diversity in the professional construction workforce and hopefully an improved retention of skilled professionals as well. Our project goal is straightforward but ambitious. We want to establish higher level apprenticeships as a legitimate tertiary delivery pathway across New Zealand. This will support regional development by making advanced education accessible outside of our major urban centres. It will contribute to national climate resilience goals by creating pathways for the skilled professionals needed to design and implement adaptation solutions. We're developing adaptable models and a toolkit to help other sectors implement similar approaches. Ultimately, we aim to address skills shortages while improving the sector diversity and also advancing multiple of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, particularly around quality education, gender equality, decent work and climate action. We've developed a comprehensive resource kit to support these implementations. All these are available on our website. These will give you the background that explains the concept, literature scan, examining international models and evidence, insights from key informants across industry and education, quantitative analysis of workforce needs, and a value proposition for stakeholders. These resources provide both the evidence base for our approach, but also practical guidance for any of you that might be looking to do this implementation yourselves. Thank you very much. You can find more information at our website, shared here.
You're muted, Philister.
Thank you so much, Eve. Sorry for that. You can see we have more participants joining now, and I kindly request them to at least introduce themselves in the chat. And also, I know we already have questions for Eve. Keep them in the chat, and we have Natalie who is compiling all the questions, and you will be answered. So for the next speech, we have Nyamai Wambua, who will discuss the importance of recognizing skills acquired through informal learning and work experience, and how this can contribute to better workforce inclusion and economic growth. Over to you, Nyamai.
Yeah, thank you very much, Felista, and the entire team for this opportunity. So, like it has already been said and introduced, my name is Nyamai Wambua, the Chief Executive Officer at the Kenya National Federation of Jua Kali Associations here in Kenya. The Kenya National Federation of Jua Kali Associations is an umbrella organization. We are 33 years old. We represent skilled artisans in the informal sector here in Kenya, and we have been really at the forefront of skills development, skills recognition here in Kenya and within the East African region. So I will be making my presentation just about what we have been doing in institutionalizing recognition of prior learning here in Kenya, but also importantly, making a provision and including most of the marginalized and very vulnerable groups, including the informal sector. Next slide, please. Yes, you can move the next slide. Thank you. Yeah, so like it were, and you will see, sorry. Yeah, so my slides are basically two major components. One is the structure of the policy framework here in Kenya, as it is provided by, the Kenya National Recognition of Prior Learning Policy Framework. So you will see that one of the other aspects of finding a place for the informal sector was a deliberate policy thrust that the government of the Republic of Kenya made by creating and providing a policy framework. Of course, this policy framework has been developed through a very elaborate multi-sectoral and multi-stakeholder process that has brought in all the key actors that are involved in skills development. But importantly, I think what to note is that the policy itself has provided for key constituencies and key groups of beneficiaries that would have been otherwise excluded in the traditional education training assessment systems. So you will see at the face value, at the face of it, that the policy focuses on beneficiaries or people that would be greatly benefit and be affected by the recognition of prior learning system here in Kenya. That includes, like you see, groups like the informal sector itself, but also immigrants or migrant workers, people in the refugees camps, people coming from even the formal sector, but they are not certified. So I think the first point of finding a place for the informal sector is a policy framework provides directly the informal sector becomes part and parcel. So thank you very much. We can move to the next slide. Yes, thanks. Of course, the other point from the policy framework is to say that we also have a legal framework that provides for inclusion of not only those that are being assessed in the TVET, in the other forms of assessments, in the other forms of pathways, but also those that are in the lifelong learning pathway where the recognition of prior learning is anchored. So the National Qualifications Framework, which is provided by law under the Kenya National Qualifications Framework Act 2014, encompasses and integrates the recognition of prior learning into the existing education and training system so that it is able to provide for progression of those that will learn but also be assessed through recognition of prior learning. So I think the legal framework is very inclusive and finds a place for such other persons that may have learned in the informal sector, and therefore they find a place in our legal framework, as it were, by the three major acts of parliament: the TVET Act 2013, the Industrial Training Act 2011, and of course, the Kenya National Qualifications Framework Act of 2014. So you could see in the main pathways as provided in that chart, the very last, or rather the extreme right, is where recognition of prior learning is anchored in our law, including how the assessment will be mapped to the other pathways for ease of recognition and inclusion within the education and training, the traditional formal education training system. Thank you very much. Let's proceed. Of course, apart from the policy and the legal framework, we have also a very clear institutional framework that is anchored in the policy. And that institutional framework provides for the actual structures of the implementation of the recognition of prior learning policy here in Kenya, bringing all the stakeholders, all the agencies responsible, and their roles are clearly defined in the institutional framework, including the role of the industry. Of course, you'll appreciate that here in Kenya, or probably even the entire sub-Saharan Africa, when you talk about industry, not so much of like the other parts of the world where the industry is very formal, very structured. Here we have a very large informal sector. So the industry here in Kenya as well includes the informal sector. And the institutional framework brings together also the actors and the organizations, umbrella organizations that are representing the informal sector here in Kenya, including and led by the Kenya National Federation of Juakali Associations, so that we are able to provide the space for those actors to play their role. Of course, this is guided by guidelines and case of the ILO and many other tools that we have used to be able to learn and be able to create our own institution framework here in Kenya. So I think I just wanted to mention that I think the informal sector and its organizations most of the time have not been given a voice, they have not been given a space to act and to play a role in many of the traditional education and training systems, including assessment systems. But for us here in Kenya, the recognition of prior learning has provided that opportunity so that we are able to leverage on the immense networks of the organizations that are involved in the informal sector here in Kenya. So we can move to the next slide, please. Of course, this is where probably the crust of the matter. So within the overall ecosystem of implementation of recognition of prior learning, we are aware that assessments are at the core, or assessment is at the core of the RPL system here in Kenya or any other part of the world. And there has been, of course, an appreciation that since we are leveraging on the existing education and training structures, assessment through the RPL system could actually happen at the TVET institutions or the TVET training providers. But I think out of our experience in our pilot, we realized that this constituency of the informal sector and the beneficiaries that are coming from that would require recognition through certification would not find it very easy to go to the traditional education training institutions that are formal, and therefore looking at how to probably provide ease of assessment, ease of access of facilities and infrastructure. We developed a strategy to do assessments in the informal sector using and leveraging on the existing construction work sites. So the government of Kenya here has a very elaborate, very strategic investment in affordable housing, and that is what we leverage on to make sure that assessments through recognition of prior learning are taking place in the active construction sites. Of course, that has also been blended with those construction sites being linked to the existing informal sector work sites. We have a very large infrastructure of informal sector work sites, and therefore the construction site would become like the focal points, but therefore link the last mile assessment also to the informal sector work sites, which are the ones that are holding they are managed by the informal sector associations. And as you could see in this photograph, this is one construction site but it has been linked to, sorry for that. It has been linked to the nearest of informal sector association or Jua Kali association. So for ease of able to extend the assessments to their work sites. Of course, the other point is in leveraging all the same, we have been upgrading or skill upgrading the artisans so that they would become professional master craftspersons and RPA practitioners to support the assessments on the construction sites, but also assessments in their own sites, where most of the beneficiaries will find it easy and comfortable to approach and present themselves for assessment. Please, let's move to the next one, which is most likely the numbers. Of course, in our pilot, you could see that it is sectoral. Our assessments, because the informal sector here in Kenya is also structured under skills or trades or or occupational areas. So the Kenya National Federation of Jua Kali Association, as one of the umbrella informal sector organizers, is very critical in identifying or mobilizing, if you like, who would be RPL candidates. And that is how we structure them. Then they would go through the counseling after they have been have expressed their interest and they have been found to be eligible through pre-screening. They will go through the process of assessment across the entire ecosystem. So these are the numbers. Of course, we could see that we even picked other sectors that are not necessarily the construction sector, but the construction sector was very critical because we are using the affordable housing sites as the assessment centers. So thank you very much for that. So let's move to the next, and which is most likely the last. Thank you. All right, is it up? Yeah, so the last is that, of course, recognition leads to certification. And after certification, there is, of course, the celebration, which means that all those candidates that have been assessed through recognition of prior learning, they will receive the same awards as those that would have gone through the formal education training. So therefore means we organize formal graduation ceremonies so that they feel that this is the achievement of their entire process as it would have been if they had gone through the formal education and training. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Nyamai Wambua. And now we move on to the next speaker, who is Vanessa. Vanessa from National Industrial Learning Service in Brazil, and she will be talking about in-company learning. Welcome, Vanessa.
Hello everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. It's a pleasure to introduce you the methodology Learning to Build. This initiative aimed to attracting new workers to the construction sector through professional training conducted directly at construction work sites. SENAI is the largest and private professional vocational education and technical services complex in Latin America. And SENAI is responsible to train over 3 million students in different fields every year, technical fields every year. But the construction sector is a challenge for us because each year it's more difficult to engage new workers, and this is really a challenge. The construction sector here in Brazil is one of the most dynamic and essential industries with a high and constant demand for labor force and engage new workers. So the methodology Learn to Build was created some years ago, and we have a lot of pilot tests in different companies. And the idea is to create a work-based and in-company learning module to the construction sector. The program combines digital technologies with hands-on training, right, on the construction site. These approaches, we believe, that accelerate the professional development while keeping workers engaged in the real world tasks. And a key factor of this methodology is a training of multipliers. These multipliers is a skilled professional within the company, such as foreman or constructions technicians, who is trained and to guide and mentor new learnings with the SENAI's support. This model ensures, we believe that ensures that training that's relevant, practical, and tailored to the company specific needs. The professionals initially included in this methodology that are bricklayers, masonry worker, mortar finishing and application mason, construction carpenter, and the rebar workers. The workload of these professions is are approximately 160 hours for these professions. And the idea is expand the methodology to other roles in the future, applying the same methodology. So, how does work the training process? First, we need to identify with the companies the need specific for training, with professional they need. And then tonight train the multipliers, and then going to the structures of the enrollments of the students. And on the construction side of the company, it starts the process of the training, starting by the practical sections at constructions, self-paced training, and hands-on training. The resources that we need for this trainings is video lessons, textbooks, worksheet packets. We have a lot of resources, technical resources, and the methodologies and the pedagogical resources that could bring to this training real situations and can use the same acknowledgement that these students have in the routine of work. So the certificate, the theoretical and the practical assessment and the certification is the responsibility of SENAI, but the multiplier is constantly being supported, technical and pedagogical by SENAI. So the key resources that we provide is the first one, and the very important, the multiplier, that is the key person. We believe that because they have the same language, the same language, and the same used work that with these professionals, video lessons in the digital platform specific of SENAI. The methodology is based on competencies and simulations too. It's easy to understand, the language is richly illustrated for these works. Some, it's a very, in the Brazil, the construction sector, we have very informal workers. So for many of them, is the first approach with a technical course. And with this benefit that we have for the companies, first, a free training of the employers, that is very rich opportunity. The engagement and retention of these professionals. And then we have the cost and time saving by eliminating commuting, a flexible schedules adapted to the project timelines, that it's very important for the companies. The productivity gains through continuous learn and reduced errors. And for workers, the benefits are a rapid skill development and professional recognition, a practical learning with immediate application in real-world situation scenarios, blended theory and practice with online videos and on-site activities. And very important, the opportunity that we have based on the experience at SENAI in this methodology and on surveys by the Brazilian Chamber of Construction, CEBIC, and recognizing the workforce need in the sector, SENAI and CEBIC have developed a strategic partnership launched this year, 2025, named National Training Plan for Construction. This initiative brings free on-site training to low-income workers, eliminate barriers like travel and the rigid schedules, and by adapting to the reality of each work site, the plans ensures that learning is efficient, practical, and scalable. And is that? And thank you very much. We believe that this methodology, Learning to Build, it's an opportunity for companies attract new workers and upskilling current workers in the construction sectors by offering practical, flexible training and promoting professional growth and increasing productivity in this important industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. Our final speaker for this session will be Aidan Kenny. And Aidan Kenny will talk about the development of micro-credential framework for green skills. So without much further ado, I hand it over to Aidan.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. And thank you to UNEVOC and BIP and the BILT project. My name is Aidan Kenny. My colleague is Klaus Talvak. And we both work in are a part of UNEVOC centres in Sweden and Ireland. Actually, we met in 2008 at an international UNESCO-UNEVOC conference held in Dublin, and we've been working together ever since. So I think the importance of networking with UNEVOC centres is really important and long lasting. So this project is a European funded Erasmus project. It's a 2-year project. It looks at micro-credentials and green skills, upskill and pathways for adults. So the project idea came about through discussions with Klaus, his UNESCO centre in Sweden and Ireland, and then colleagues in Bulgaria. And we were looking at the demand for and the opportunities that were arising in relation to green skills across Europe. And in particular, there was significant developments and investment and policy agendas that were pushing the green skills agenda. In relation to the demand in the European Union, the 27 countries, there was over 128 million adults who could benefit from these new emerging opportunities, and of which 60 million were at risk of skills obsolescence. So we were looking at this and we were saying, well, how can we develop an upskilling and a reskilling program that could assist these adults who are already in the workplace. And this is where we developed this idea. We put forward the application. So we said we would look at micro-credentials. So for anybody not familiar with micro-credentials, they're short courses that focus on the workplace, skills that are relevant to the workplace. They have a defined duration. So it can be from 10 hours to several days, in some cases several weeks, depending on the qualification or the level of the learning. They're flexible, so they're designed to facilitate workers to participate, and they're certified. So each micro-credential has a certificate. And then they're also stackable. So you can stack, you can get several micro-credentials and put them together to make a larger award. So we looked at micro-credentials and said, okay, we're in the green skills area. Where did we want to look for this particular project? So we said we'd look at energy efficiencies, particularly in the construction and the built environment and engineering sector. So we're looking at energy efficiencies, renewable energy. We didn't really look as much on, it was part of it, but sustainable agriculture, but it wasn't really the area that we were going to look at. Waste management and environmental conservation. So we took from this and said we'll focus really on the domestic house building sector. And we took a lot of the thinking and policy development in the 5 areas above and brought them into this project. So the project partnership, I don't know if you're familiar with European Erasmus projects. You set up a consortium, a partnership. We set up a partnership with 17 main partners and 9 associate partners from Sweden, Ireland, Bulgaria, Spain, Latvia, and North Macedonia. Our partnership consisted of TVET teachers, higher education, administrators, employers, and national agencies. It was a large partnership, a complex partnership to manage and to coordinate, but we're at the end of the journey now. We'll be finishing the project within the next few months. So the work was to review green skills, identify the key competencies. We were looking at the European qualification level 4, which is a TVET or vocational level. We agreed on the micro-credential framework. We developed a learning platform, which will be made available free of charge. We designed pilot projects, so we had 90 mobilities included in the project and piloted the outcomes in each country. And we had a quality assurance system in place and an effective management system in place during the project. As I say, it was a 30-month project. Parts of the project was the actual transnational meetings and the sharing of best practice and knowledge in the different partner countries. And then the pilot mobilities to test the products that we developed. So the outcomes, we've developed learning outcomes that are based on the descriptors at EQF level 4. Our learning platform with the micro-credential courses, as I say, will be made available free of charge to the public. We've also created a mobility guideline document. As I said, we had 90 mobilities in this project. So we gathered a lot of learning. And then we've established this partnership network for future work and cooperation. There are some of the partners that were involved in the project. You can see it's quite diverse, range from state agencies to education training boards to regional municipalities. And that's a very quick run through. I think I had 5 minutes. So yeah, so as I say, we go back to UNEVOC centres. I think it's really important to network and the connections that we made back in 2008. We're still working together today. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Aidan, and sorry for mispronouncing your name earlier. And I want to thank all speakers for their wonderful speeches and ask participants to continuously put their questions on the Q&A section and continue interacting in the chat to check what our chat moderator, Natalie, is put in there. And at this point now, I hand it over to Jessica, my colleague, to moderate the next part. Over to you, Jessica.
Thanks so much, Philister, and thanks from my side also for the engaging pitches that we've had. So my name is Jessica Rosenfeld, and I am also located in Bonn, but for a different organization. I work for the German Federal Institute for Vocational Education and Training, or BIB for short. So let's dive right in. We're running short on time to our first panel discussion question. I would love to see all my panelists online here if I can. And I'll start with the first question. So what role can employers play in promoting flexible and future-oriented VET in the sector? Moreover, what is the role of work-based learning in the context of preparing learners for Industry 4.0 and the green transition? Wambua, I'd like to start with you for this question. So given the recognition of prior learning project that you work on, and it's so tightly linked to work-based assessment and industry and employer engagement, I think this is a good start for you here.
Yes, thank you very much, Jessica. Thank you for your question. Yeah, I think employers, as part of the, labor market ecosystem, are very critical, and they have a role. One of the roles is that they provide the information. Let me say the occupational standard. They inform the demand side of the ecosystem. And I think employers are very critical in also funding and providing financial support to either their workers that would want to learn and upscale and rescale, but also they support assessment of their workers through the recognition of prior learning system. So I think, secondly, whatever comes out of the assessment and the learning systems has to have credence and recognition of value as it compared to the demand side of the labor market. I think that connection and is very important, and that is why employers and their associations are very critical. Of course, employers provide workplaces, especially for our case. There is the investment of having our already infrastructure for assessment, and this is coming through the kind support or the in-kind support and investment of employers and their organizations. Probably that is what I can put. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Klaus, I'd like to then direct this question back at you, because with your Green Skills micro-credentials project, it's also future-orientated and promotes flexible learning. So how did you work then with various employment-related stakeholders to ensure that it also then falls in with work-based learning?
Yeah. As you understand, it's quite important to also include a more climate-friendly green perspective in the training of the workforce for the construction sector, and that's what we do, and that's what I think is really important for the future, to bring in that kind of competence by reskilling and upskilling our workforce. What I understand is the employee associations that are participating in our project, they share this opinion. It's crucial for them that we start to think with a more green perspective when it's about construction.
Okay. Would anyone else on our panel like to address this question? Additional thoughts? Okay, then let's dive into our second, Matthias. I want to start with you for this one, as it strongly relates to the work that you've done to develop strategic partnerships in particular. So how do we create strong partnerships across stakeholder groups, including industry, so ensuring stronger alignment with labor market demand and TVET in the construction sector?
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Thank you for the question. Well, first we have to understand the challenge of the sector. What they are facing to is low productivity? Is the low sector attractive for workers? Is the destination of waste and other parts residues in the construction site? And then we have to adapt not only the curriculum, but also the way that we training will be done. In our case in Brazil, the National Chamber of Construction did a survey with the associates, the industry, the companies associated with them to identify these challenges. And then they built this partnership with SENAI, and then we developed the learning by doing program. Not only the development of the training process, but also the definition of the target people, which in this case will be the low-income workers, like assistants and helpers. And it's good for everyone because these people are they're having the opportunity to be in parts of the construction on the labor that they would take long to be there and to show their potential, their competence, and then to upscale in their career. I think that's to start. That's it.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to bring in Eve also on this question as well, given the degree apprenticeship program also relies on strong partnerships. I think everyone relies on strong partnerships for all of their projects.
Very difficult to do anything without them, isn't it? Yes. I think work-based learning is particularly well positioned in this conversation. But I think we can often forget the different levels of relationships that work-based learning can be involved in order to establish that labor market demand. They have that individual relationship with individual learners, and there's a lot that can be gleaned from that around, oh, you learned this thing last week, but that's not what you're doing in real life on-job application. There's also the relationship with the on-job supervisor. That's another level of information that can be brought back into reviewing and refining the content in the curriculum. Again, there's that broader company level, as well as the more formal touch points with the industry peak bodies, for example. I think it's important to not forget that industry, there's a lot of consultation fatigue with industry. They are being pulled on more and more. So it's important to sort of consider the system that you're operating in. What are the forced touch points that are already happening that you can build on and leverage off? For example, the interactions that you're having with your learners that you might not be using to record, for perhaps taking that back to do a program or a curriculum content update as well, rather than trying to manufacture yet another survey, touch point, workshop with another deficit into the already stretched industry. In terms of the degree apprenticeships themselves, industry are co-designing the apprenticeship standard with the providers themselves. So the apprenticeship standard is sort of, it's a hybrid halfway between the qualification document and a job description. It's sort of that middle ground between the two. And so that's a great opportunity and a great starting point where industry feels a stronger sense of ownership than with the qualification, because the qualification is not representative of perhaps what they would say their needs are. So that apprenticeship standard really is something for them to take more ownership of and to become more involved in. And therefore that natural relationship evolves from there.
That's a really interesting point. Did anyone else want to jump in here regarding their own experiences?
Yes, Jessica, I could just add one. And for our case, I think the partnerships they are very deliberate and intentionally sectoral. The sectoral approach to developing partnerships. Of course, we have many umbrella associations of industries and as the voice, but I think coming slightly down below the overall overarching umbrella organization and getting to the actual industry specific and sector specific associations, so that the partnerships are very strategic and you are able to pick out the actual needs of the industry or within the industry. I think that becomes a better way of developing partnerships and also investing in the same. Thank you very much.
were your partnerships formed organically? Were they based off former networks that you had?
Yeah, we, of course, they're very organic, they are need-based, there's a lot of interactions, so there's a lot of conversations that go, then down the road in the conversations, people realize, oh, we have commonalities, we have areas we can work together, then they forge the partnership. So I was just saying, it doesn't have to be top down and cast on stone. It has to be allowed lateral conversations within the sectors that are specifically dealing with certain occupational skill areas, for example, and certain investments are able to be directed in those. Thank you very much.
Okay. So moving on, whenever we talk about flexible learning pathways, the topic of credibility is often not far behind. So when we talk about these flexible TVET certifications like recognition of prior learning and micro-credentials, we need to have in mind how we can make them credible and value within the labor market in general and within the building and construction sector in particular. So in other words, how do we ensure that these credentials and certificates are trusted and actually strengthen employability rather than deter from it? Klaus, given that you work specifically with micro-credentials and stackable, and I know this was a big part of your project, I think it would be good for you to start.
Yeah. And it's difficult because it's such a huge differences between countries, like you know. But in our case in Scandinavia, in Sweden, you have, it's all based on a formal training system, and the added education are governed by the state, so to say. So when we use recognition of prior learning, or if we develop micro-credentials, or if we organize training on the workplace, it's all governed by the formal education. And by that, it's also recognized by the employers because they are a part of it all. So to say, so when people like me put my stamp on a accreditation, then that's fine for the industry, so to say. So in our context, it's vital with a link, strong link between the employers and the formal education and vocational training system. That's essential for us, and that also make it also easier for us to get to develop all kind of training and so on, and get that recognized by the employers. That's how it works with us.
I know that your project had originally had the lofty goal of trying to have certification across the European Union with those that were involved in your project, and you ran into a lot of difficulties with that. So it would also be interesting if you could touch on that with how you tried to integrate a bit across the different educational systems, and what were some of the challenges you faced?
So the thing, what we have done is that we develop a platform where people, professionals, can upload their examples, and the government can read and follow what's been developed, and take part in a discussion and so on, and then by that inspire others to follow the development in different countries. And it's in Europe, that's most important, that the European Union doesn't become some kind of overall decision maker, so to say. You can inspire others to do what you do, but you don't have any kind of overall system that are accepted by all countries or different employers in different countries, and so to say. So what we do is that we try to develop this kind of platform and describe what we did and then welcome others to follow our good examples.
Matthias, how is this discussion playing out in Brazil and across Latin America as well with credibility?
Yeah, well, it's also a big challenge here in Brazil because we have to be connect with the industry challenge, but also we have to obey some especially the legislation across the vocational training that we have here in Brazil, which we try to modernize, but it's not a fast track. Well, especially for building sector, what we are doing now, we try to recognize, to have some batches in the middle of the process of the course to make the workers able to participate in part of the activities at the construction process. But it's not something that is formal. It's good for the company because they are recognizing, they identify the best talents at the company to promote, to grow their, to be possible to grow their career. But the whole certification and the formal certification, it's at the end of the course. But well, we try to deal with many stakeholders and attend at this challenge. Micro-credential in Brazil, it's still a challenge, especially when we're talking about formal recognition. But the companies, the best part is the companies are looking at that as a good way to identify and to impact their process faster than at the traditional role.
Yeah, Eve, you even had a question. It was I think the first or second question that somebody asked right now in the Q&A regarding your apprenticeship program was, is it certified by higher education? So this is also a question that's on the minds of our listeners today as well.
Yeah,
if you want to answer
absolutely.
That.
Yeah, the qualifications that these are leading to. So first and foremost, in 3 of the 4 pilots, there are existing qualifications where we are adapting the delivery model of that qualification. So they are not new or different qualifications. So people will graduate from the campus-based one or the work-based learning one, but they will achieve the same qualification at the end. Another way that we are trying to strengthen the relevance and that sort of that industry seal of approval is through the capstone assessment. So the capstone assessment is designed with industry, where it's an industry that has professional registration requirements. We are integrating the capstone assessment and the professional registration requirements so that you can obtain your qualification. And then if you obtain your capstone assessment, you are also then registered as a professional, insert job title here, because you have been in that earn and learn and employed while you are studying. You've already been racking up those hours that usually are the prerequisites to qualify for professional registration. So you are already making further steps in your career while you're doing that study. Your career is continuing on rather than having to be paused for that study opportunity. So that capstone, both the design of it, but also it's a final seal of approval that the industry is involved in. It's also a way of benchmarking and ensuring that consistency across providers, because some of the issue that we have, especially we are a very long and skinny country. And so ensuring that what is delivered at the very top and what is delivered right at the bottom, ensuring that that is the same is a big challenge for us. So by having that capstone, that also allows us to not benchmark providers, but enables us to ensure that there is a consistency of outcomes, regardless of the pathway, regardless of the provider.
Interesting. Would anyone like to add anything? Okay. So, building trust in flexible TVET systems is a new topic that we're discussing, but TVET in general and trust and ensuring trust in TVET is not a new one. So changing negative perceptions of TVET in general and the construction sector in particular is challenging for all of us. So how do your solutions in particular help to combat some of these misconceptions? And Eve, I'll throw it back to you again as you were just speaking.
Thank you, Jessica. The issue with this question is that it's almost a double whammy. It's a double impact. We have the occupational stereotypes, the occupational challenges, but we also have the educational stereotypes as well. So we really are combating on both fronts, really. Construction has a certain reputation, vocational education has a certain reputation. The sorts of people that are guided towards construction or towards vocational education, everybody has an image of what those people are or aren't. The degree apprenticeship project is really blurring those lines. We have some quite arbitrary lines between what we deem higher education versus vocational education, what we deem professional versus vocational. Whereas with a degree apprenticeship, we are blurring the lines between what is higher education and what is vocational, as well as what is a profession versus what is a vocation. So we're already challenging that. In order to get 4 pilots up and running, we had to convince enough people about that very thing so that they would be on board to pilot it with us. And I found that what was the most effective was myth busting with some statistics. Because people have an idea, they have a preconceived notion of what an apprentice is and isn't. And so providing some quick stats to really kind of break down that stereotype, I have found really effective. And so the ones that I usually put, obviously these are New Zealand context only, so don't go sharing the same numbers in your own countries. But only 4% of school leavers in New Zealand do an apprenticeship. So people very often have in mind a school leaver as an apprentice. That is not the case in New Zealand. The median age of an automotive apprentice in New Zealand is 35. 1/3 of all current apprentices in New Zealand have university debt. So they've gone to university, started something, maybe finished something, but figured out along the way that that wasn't quite what they wanted to do and they wanted to do something else. So they've then moved to an apprenticeship. So really what I'm trying to say is, well, I'm not saying that that bit in the middle is useless, far from it. I love my time at university. But if that is not the most direct route for people, then how do we figure out that they have clear enough signposting to find the route that is best suited to them and their needs? I will also add just briefly, COVID taught us that we can change policy like that. Policy can be changed at the flick of a pen. What takes a lot longer is those mental models. So while we can start with challenging people's preconceived notions of some of these concepts right now, it will actually take generations to fully dispel all of those myths and preconceived ideas. And I think it's important to recognize that that is the time that it will take so that we don't get disheartened along the way.
That's really interesting. I'm curious, Wambua, because you work so closely with the informal sector, it would be difficult to use these statistics and data to combat challenges because you're dealing with people that aren't in the system already. So how are you personally dealing then with misconceptions? And I imagine there's also different ones as well surrounding the workforce that you're engaging too.
Yeah, thank you very much. We definitely are facing the same perceptions and misconceptions about, especially the formal scaling, whether it is adequate, whether it is worth able to lead one to recognize qualifications even after the assessment. Because the way learning and scaling is happening in the informal sector is not structured. There are no curricula, there are no standards, they are not, even if they are not defined. So we have that, therefore, perception and people feeling that even if you assess them and you award them with a certification. There is still an issue of whether do they have the adequate knowledge, for example, and attitudes that will lead to a full qualification, for example. So there's a debate between full qualifications as they are defined in TVET and in education and training through curricula and formal training, and occupations that are picked on the job and people become good, but they are not able to even say who they are. So they adopt the names of the formal qualifications. If somebody says they are a plumber or a carpenter or, for example, a tiler, they're using those names that are defined in the qualifications within the formative and education. But when they are assessed, they are probably being told you're not good as a plumber, although you claim to be one, and yet they can demonstrate those competencies. So I think we have an issue around whether we are using occupational standards to assess or whether we are using qualification standards to assess. And there's a whole debate. For us, we prefer using occupational standards because those are the ones that are prevalent and known in the industry and in the informal sector, because that is where we operate in. But translating and converting the occupational standards to the learning outcomes of the occupations, I mean, all of the qualifications that are defined in curriculum, is an area that is becoming a bit of a challenge. But the conversations are intense, they are ongoing. We have, for example, in the construction sector, here in Kenya, the regulator for the construction sector in Kenya, the National Construction Authority, has a whole list of trades, what we call construction trades. But when you go to the education and training, they do not have the same names of the trades. Their qualifications are named differently from those that are named, from there the occupations are named. So for us, we use the regulators' definitions and names of occupations for purposes of assessment. But they have to be certified with a qualifications equivalent to those that are defined in the occupation, in the qualifications framework. So we have a bit of a challenge on how then do we harmonize the namings. And the perceptions are that probably, although they are qualified and they are assessed with the occupations, probably they don't measure up to a full qualification. And that is where issues of micro-credentials, partial qualifications are becoming prevalent. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Unless someone has a point that they would like to add, I will segue to our Q&A because we're running a bit short on time. Final words on that one? No? Okay. I would actually like to, if Vanessa is interested, to come back to the stage because I have a question for both Vanessa and Matthias. And it's a good segue question because it deals with both our last two. So regarding your project, given the initiative removes traditional barriers by offering on-site flexible training, how do you actually ensure consistent training quality and skills recognition? So we've been discussing this topic already. And how do you ensure that across the different work sites, especially for the informal and low-income settings?
Okay, I start, Matteo.
Yes, please.
As the methodology combined different kinds of researches as practical and theoretical, the students and the trainings and the multipliers have the opportunity to access the more adequate way to use these researches and even more adequate to the level of knowledge of the students. This is the first one. And the other thing that ensures that the informal and low income students has access and good learning is the flexibility of the methodology is that the different resources and the on-site, and each phase of the methodology of the training brings evaluations that to measure the level of the students, and in the language of this, the resources, all the training is very accessible, it's very friendly, it's very simple, illustrated, and the partnership with the companies is a guarantee to have access for the transport for the work site. And then we have a whole of resources and ways to the workers and to new students in the work site, since the methodology bring that, and the partnerships brings to with access to guarantee that these workers stay into the training, and the methodology guarantees adapted project timeline. The training has the same project timeline that it, so the students can adaptate the learning.
Just a few add words here. Despite the fact the multiplier is a very big difference in our methodology to training the trainer, it's also a big challenge, because we have to monitor and be with these multipliers during the whole process, to guarantee the training every day, to guarantee that they're gonna be committed with this daily training, and also with the applying the methodology during the process. Because if we just stay and just show us at the end of the course, the training, it would be late to if something gets wrong at the process. So the monitor, the regular monitor during the process by SENAI, by an institution that is with the multiplier, is also essential to make sure the process will be right and as we planned.
Okay, thank you. I have two questions here that I'm going to try to kind of put together. One was directed at Eve, and the other was for Aidan and class. So I don't know if Aidan also wants to join us on the screen. We have a lot of people at the moment. So it was a question regarding transversal skills and language skills. So in curriculum development and access to higher education, and also kind of entry into TVET, there was a question regarding a lack of language, such as teaching English skills or mathematics, as barriers to higher education routes, or we could also say to barriers of flexibility within TVET and pathways. And then also this question of then prerequisites and knowledge or skills, again, with entering micro-credential projects and programs. So do you yourselves see that there is a lack, essentially, of language teaching or transversal skills within your sectors as barring people from moving between TVET and higher education, or different levels of TVET? What have been your experiences with your projects and in your home countries? It's open to anyone.
Go ahead, Aidan.
Aidan.
Okay, okay, thank you. Yeah, look, language is very important. However, in particular in the construction sector, where there's a lot of commonality in relation to practices, a working knowledge of language can suffice and allow people to work sufficiently within the sector once they have the theoretical and practical knowledge behind their subject. So, for example, in our project, we were talking about solar, and we were specifically looking at breaking down the installation of solar panels into small chunks of knowledge for the domestic house market. And we were looking at Bulgaria, North Macedonia, Sweden, so all different languages. And we were trying to make that in a meaningful way that there was a common understanding. And that worked out once we got the professionals into the room that knew their techniques in their country, and we put them all in the same place. They could then share that knowledge quite easily, even though there was still a language barrier. But the technical knowledge behind that particular skill was shared easy enough. I see there's a few questions on micro-credentials there. I was trying to type out some responses to them. Look, the other part is so prior, do you need prior knowledge to do a micro-credential? Is it prerequisites there? That depends on the level. You know, if you've got a level 8 micro-credential, like that's PhD level, you're going to have some prior knowledge before you can do a program like that. But if it's a level 4 and you're from the sector, you know, it may not need a prerequisite before you can do it. The funding side of it, yeah, funding. So in some countries it's public funded, in others it's not. But there is a unique value for the employer in doing micro-credentials, because if they can partner with a TVET institute or a higher education institute to get the micro-credential accredited, the beauty about micro-credentials is they can be delivered in the workplace. So the work-based learning and the assessment can happen in the workplace and be carried out by the TVET centre or the higher education provider. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunities there for micro-credentials, but the key thing is they're quality assured and accredited and relevant to the workplace. So that's where the partnership with the employers is crucial. And within our project, we had employers as well. And employers associations and social partners, trade unions as well, because that the whole connection between employers, workers and education is key to developing micro-credentials. Okay.
In our case, there's a few different solutions to the literacy and numeracy question. There are bridging courses, there are courses that integrate literacy and numeracy into their training, and there is sort of separate independent support for upskilling people on that, both prior or during their other training. But I do want to bring in a point around the degree apprenticeships, where with the people that we're targeting, they are people that have perhaps already been in a workforce for a while, people that are already operating at more than a functional level in literacy and numeracy. I'll give you a scenario. Somebody may have been an accountant for 15 years and they don't want to be an accountant anymore. They want to become a quantity surveyor. There's a lot of transferable skills between accounting and quantity surveying. But at the moment, the accountant in question is 37, married with a mortgage and 3 children. So the possibility of giving up full-time paid employment to go back to university to retrain as a quantity surveyor is slim to none. The degree apprenticeship opportunity allows that individual and therefore the industry to gain a different talent pool, people who are career changers, who either perhaps already have qualifications, be they trades qualifications, degree qualifications, but are looking to build on or extend on or have an equivalent level, but in a different industry perhaps. So the degree apprenticeships, I may be proven wrong, but we are not aiming them at school leavers. We're aiming them at people who are perhaps already in a career, whether that is construction or not. We know, for example, that engineering students at the moment in New Zealand and universities and the University of Auckland, a lot of them struggle to attend the lectures because they are employed in engineering firms. So we want to formalize that relationship that we already know is happening, but turn that into something that is formalized, recognized, and that has both an academic and a professional value for all the parties.
Does anyone else have anything they would like to add to this question? Okay. Then I would like to once again thank all of our panelists, our speakers, our presentations, and we are actually back on time. So thank you, everyone. We had over 30 questions, which we will not get to. My apologies to our participants. And we had around, I believe, 126 participants. So thank you to everyone. And with that, I will close out and ask my speakers to leave our stage, and Aldridge to please pull up our presentation quickly so I can close this learning lab on flexible learning pathways in the construction sector out. Thank you once again. And we are back. So we've also had some questions regarding additional resources. And as you can see on this slide, we have some great examples from our BILT and BIB archives. We also had a learning lab that was focused just on micro-credentials within the tourism sector. We also have a good example of work-based learning at an experimental hotel. And our current expert group, which Eve is currently the lead organization involved with this on building and the construction sectors. There's another recognition of prior learning examples from Africa by our BIB colleagues, if that's something you're interested in, and also the BIB Apprenticeship Toolbox, which offers policy insights into 5 different European countries on their dual VET programs. Next slide, please, Aldridge. So our upcoming events for the BILT project and some release dates. Our big event will be our next BILT Bridging Conference, which will be the 28th to the 30th of May. That will be held in Malaysia this year for our Asian Pacific regional focus. And we will be doing this in conjunction with the Global Digital TVET Transformation Summit. Some limited live streaming will be available to the public. Also, mark your calendars for the next UN World Skills Day on July 15th. This year's theme will be Youth Empowerment Through AI and Digital Skills. You can always check our website for upcoming BILT events, like our BILT webinar series. So stay tuned for that. It'll be on Skill Up, Stay Ahead, TVET for Employability. And we also have coming out some new ILPs, or innovative learning practices, as we like to call them. We will be having 4 that will be released soon, coming this summer and autumn. Next slide, please, Aldridge. And last but not least, please let us know how we did today and help us improve these learning labs by answering a short feedback form. If you've already left us, don't worry. We will be sending out an automated email also with a link, so you can answer it later today. So thank you again to all of my speakers. Thank you from us here in Bonn, and have a good rest of your day wherever you may be in the world. Take care.